Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Declo podcast. And today's guest is Ashish Garg, who is a security engineer who's transitioned into being a cybersecurity executive. And just for the record, I have practiced extensively on the pronunciation of Ashish's name, and I don't know. We'll maybe get it right, we maybe won't. So my sincere apologies for that as well. So Ashish, it's good to see you. I know that we tried to plan this a couple of times. We're finally here. I'm so happy that you're here on the episode and the channel. And then, yeah, just give me a brief overview of you and your career. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leo. Really appreciate and really happy to be here. So I originally came from India about 25 years back to this country to do my graduate studies in computer science and engineering. I transitioned into a PhD program in computer information security. And during that time frame, I did not know what I'm going to be doing or why do I need PhD, but it just looked so lucrative to learn so much about security that time that I decided to enroll, and it turned out good. Within the PhD, I took a 1 year or so break to go to IBM Research in Zurich to do research in cybersecurity. They collaborate with IBM Research and TJ Watson in New York. So that was an extremely amazing experience with the place, the people, just getting to know how security is seen worldwide. We were able to publish a patent. So that was my very first patent. So extremely
Nice.
happy with that. I came back and I somehow thought that I don't know if I'll be able to finish my PhD because most of the time you want to be in the industry and continue on. But I did, and I had a lot of motivation with my current wife now. She helped me a lot with uh, motivating me to wrap it up. And that was in State University of New York in Buffalo, upstate New York. And then I moved to Bay Area, joined a SIEM solution company or SIEM company called ArcSight. That was the original SIEM solution. They actually coined the term, or they started the domain, rather, I should say, and then we were extremely successful. I continued on that journey for many years. We went public, and then we got acquired by Hewlett Packard. After that, it was many years I was there, and then I decided to kind of go to a different industry, or not a different industry, but a different business type of business. And then I ended up joining Netscope, it started as a CASB provider, and now they are on the SASE, like more on the secure edge security side. I started more as a software engineer, developing a lot of those vendor products, more around always security side, from SIM solution to CASB solution at Netscope to data security products in Informatica. I actually had a small gig at GE Digital with their Predix platform. So a lot of big data and humongous amount of oil and gas kind of time series data that we were playing around with, ingesting them, doing analytics on that. So that was a very interesting experience. After that, so that was about 10 to 12 years of my first career of 10 to 12 years, initially more on building products as engineer and architect. And then I got an opportunity to lead the data security products for internal corporate world for PayPal. And then I joined there. And to be completely honest, it happened by chance. I was not thinking this is going to transition me into a practitioner's role or starting to leverage some of the products that I built in the past. But it turned out to be like that. I started building some of the products internally to do the analytics and assurance functions, working with internal audit, working with compliance officers, just overall looking at a lot of the infrastructure data and application stack. Eventually, that 4 years or so I stayed at PayPal turned out to be one of the most amazing experience, learning everything and anything about information security. I have not seen any environment like that. The complexity, the extremely smart people, very dedicated to the mission of what PayPal was trying to do with democratizing the fintech market. The the innovation, right? Incredible amount of innovation around risk, fraud, compliances. We were operating, I believe, in close to 200 countries. So every country brought their own, regional influence on the privacy and security regulations they had. I just amazingly, it made me very humbled into what can be done, what I need to learn, and what I did not know. That is also the time when my most of my leadership journey started. So I've been mentoring people since beginning of my career, but this also helped me get into the leadership positions, understanding of what leadership really means. I took actually a course with one of the senior directors in PayPal, and ended up reading so many leadership books, just trying to understand what does it mean. We see it as a manager and an employee kind of relation, but this was a lot more than that. This talked more about you are not just getting the work done, you are building a relationship with them, you're connecting with them, you are responsible for their career, right? How to lead with empathy, how to kind of understand why certain things are not being done. The no blame kind of leadership, right? Things do happen, they go bad, they go all right, doesn't necessarily mean it's one person's fault always or anything, right? So that started me, and then I got an opportunity after 4 years of being at PayPal, and this came randomly to a company that was starting out. It was separating from Intel, making memory chips, NAND memory for data centers primarily. And I did not know anything about semiconductor. I've never worked in that industry, but the opportunity was great. It was to kind of being a deputy CISO, building those security programs from ground up. Um, very similar to PayPal, but at a different scale and at a very early stage, right? So there is no infrastructure available to do. You have to build relationship with vendors, hire people, build roadmaps, right? Execute on them, make sure you're aligning with the business to make sure things are done on time, and revenues are not impacted, building new relationship with the business, right? Understanding what is in their pipeline that you can support and help enable them to sell more product, enable them to have that comfort from the customer that you have built-in security in your products, so they should have the comfort of that. And then 2 years back, roughly, while I was still at Solidigm, a lot of the startups or vendors that I was working with, or who were approaching me as a prospective customer to sell products, they started liking a lot of the feedback I gave them. Even if there was no match for us, I made sure that they understand what they can do better in their product, right? How can they uh, leverage the gaps in the market to enhance the feature set they have in their products. And some of them became friends. They started kind of reaching out for feedback. I started doing, and then they started asking me, would you be an advisor to us officially, right? And then I initially did not do, but recently I started kind of helping them as an official advisor. Some of the VC firms came, they were looking for due diligence for the portfolio companies or the companies they're trying to fund, right? From perspective of, is it a real pain point that you are they're so trying to solve? Are founders, you think founders can actually execute on the vision they are showing you, right? Do you feel the capability? Do you see the completeness of the vision they have? And the execution path based on their background, based on the questions you are asking and answers they are giving. Do they have a complete team of somebody building the product, the other person helping market and sell the product? So those kind of things started happening. What I found is a lot of companies that are small and medium sized, they also have they also suffer from building their own security programs. They don't have money, they don't have the resources, they don't have understanding of security. Not every company is building security products or is very security aware. So I started getting more and more involved in that. And I started seeing more and more traction from people. asking for guidance, help, or asking just some introductions, right? They just don't know people, and I have more access sometimes to some people because of my network, and I started helping. So that's where I am, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. It's very fulfilling
Yeah.
to be able to transition from engineering to a practitioner to now kind of practitioner slash kind of a helper or mentor or advisor.
Nice. I love it. It's almost like it takes you back full circle because, I think it's quite rare that you see people bridging from like engineering, building cybersecurity related products, having a product insight, then looking at feature development, and then actually thinking about it from a security point of view. And I think it's quite interesting that you've went engineering, product, and then executive and advisory. And personally, I don't think there's enough of this within the startup community. Like I see so many startups that will go like pre-seed, Series A, Series B, and then that's them now looking at security. And it could be like anything from 3 years to 8 years within their life cycle, and they've never really thought about security. And then it's like, oh my God, then someone like me will land in a company and go, wow, we need to kind of work in reverse. And yeah, I'm interested in terms of how do you find the differences moving from like a core engineering role into like security leadership? Did you go inherently with a bar raiser mindset? Because like most engineers I know of a good level, you've mentioned some really good companies, Ashish, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking, is that drilled? Is that drilled into you as a person, or like your engineering culture? Do you have a bar raiser mindset? Then you move into executive leadership, and it's like, well, we need to think of problems differently because it's not as clinical as like an engineering problem. So yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, so some of that, it's a combination of things. One is I feel extremely lucky on two accounts for myself. One is I got incredible mentors from my day one in my work at IBM Research to the first job I had at ArcSight. The hiring managers and the mentors I worked with, they were incredibly amazing, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of them who helped me along the way. The second thing that happened by chance, and I had nothing to do with it, every company I went to for a new job turned out to be very different from the previous company. So I never, in terms of industry, in terms of the size of the company, in terms of the culture of the company, and the uh, mindset, everything was different. From ArcSight was being an on-prem SIM solution to Netscope being completely cloud-based
Yeah,
CASB, to Informatica being a data security specific company trying to go cloud, to G, which had nothing to do with the security aspect, but they were a oil and gas kind of
yeah,
ingestion of IoT, industrial IoT data, and then to a fintech like giant like PayPal, to a semiconductor company like Solidigm. So I think they worked really a lot in my favor because I was challenged day one in every job. I had the skill. I knew that I am hardworking, so I knew I can do the job. But to be able to go in a new environment with new mindset of people around you, new culture, and prove yourself out, be successful in it, right? And going to a different place and doing it all over again. So that hardens you. That brings a lot of challenges, but it also helps you learn so many things that nothing surprises you to the extent that it would if you did not, right? If I went from same kind of company for 20 years and then I had to go switch the industry, it will take a lot of adjustment, and then you have your mindset stuck kind of in that. But for me, every few years it was just changing, and that just I enjoyed it. I always said this to my team, and all my friends know that I like a little bit of chaos. I never like when things are extremely disciplined. I like a little bit of chaos because it allows me to bring discipline to it. It allows me to bring programs. It allows me to create value, because chaos, nobody can see value. Once you build programs, once you show maturity, when you show matrix, it shows. So it works in your favor. A lot of people think it other way. I think it's an amazing opportunity to showcase your value very quickly, because you suddenly started producing things that didn't look possible. So
Yeah, I think it,
uh,
oh, yeah.
yeah, please.
I was going to say, you mentioned the chaos of it, and I think it's definitely an opportunity to showcase your ability, your resilience, to adapt to a problem and fix a problem quite quickly. But sorry, I interrupted you, Ashish. Back to you.
No, all I was saying is, so in terms of a challenge, I think when I switched from being a developer slash architect to more on the practitioner side, on information security side, um, it came by chance. I did not know, to be very frank, what I was signing up for. I thought I'm going to be building security products. I said, okay, that is comfortable. I have done some of that product building. I had that experience. It turned out to be for corporate security, internal security, right? And a lot of the metrics that I have not really worked through earlier, the KPIs and KRIs specific to traffic, to data, to application. And there was a mindset shift because you are also working with people in a larger organization where there could be a conflict on what you are doing versus what they are doing. There may be an overlap, and nobody likes that, right? Because they think you're stealing their lunch money. Uh, and then I realized, okay, I have to take a step back because unknowingly, I do not want to step on anybody's toe. So the better option is to take a step back, talk to them, collaborate, try to understand. If they are doing something, maybe I can help them build it better, right? I can just give them a second pair of eyes, or I can just provide them some help that complements what they are doing rather than trying to interfere. And it worked out really well, to be completely honest. I remember when I was joining PayPal, at least at that time, my hiring manager, she told me that if you want to be successful in these kind of environments, you have to learn to navigate your path. And I didn't quite understand what it meant then, because again, I had engineer's mindset, right? I do what is in front of me, I finish it, and people will integrate, or I'll integrate somebody else's work, right? It's very individualized. But when you're working in a in a larger organization where there's a lot of interdependency, you have to be able to navigate to be successful, right? You have to be seen. If you want to be seen, you have to make sure people appreciate what you're doing. You're complimenting what they're doing, right? So that was a big learning. And then first year or so, it was quite a bit of new stuff that I needed to learn to understand what information security development from inside the company, like PayPal, means, from regulatory compliance, internal audit, building the solutions, products, frameworks, helping the business, right, understand the risks around the infrastructure. Um, and navigating your path to say that what I'm doing has value to a 35,000 people company. That was a big challenge, but I'm really happy I did that because that gave me a whole new perspective, and a lot of what I learned at PayPal is why I'm where I am, I think. So definitely, definitely a big good experience there.
I love that mindset. And then moving on to like the challenges that you've been faced with within the industry, and that can be professional, it can be personal. Talk me through some of those challenges that you were faced with within your career.
Personally, I think what I mentioned was a personal challenge more than professional, because I had to change the mindset from being an engineer to a practitioner, right? Developer to a practitioner. Um, that was also the time when I had to work with a lot of third parties, a lot of vendor ecosystem, right? Understanding the risk around it, understanding how to work with them in a cordial fashion, how to be nice to them to build that relationship, but also be very clear on what the business needs, right? Um, Also, partly, I would say burnout, right? I mean, there were times in my career, not just at PayPal or as a developer or a practitioner, but overall, sometimes you enjoy a job way too much, or you just think you need to learn a lot more than you may need because you are uh, in the race, so to speak, to get ahead or establish yourself. It burns you out. So always, and that's where I think the family and the personal commitments kind of keep you in check. They kind of bring you back where you need to be. I know my second kid was born when I was in a very, very early stage startup, working really, really hard. And then first 2, 3 months of my kid, when after my kid was born, I mean, I was not even able to see them very
Yeah.
often, right? I was like not at home at any reasonable time. And then she refused to recognize me in 3 months when she was 3 months. And I said, okay,
Yeah.
this is really bad. So that hit me hard. And so there are always challenges, right? I mean, professional challenges from switching jobs to building new rapport to personal challenges on burnout that takes a toll on your physical and mental health, can spoil your relationships. You have to always kind of stay.
So yeah, moving on, Ashish. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was the topic that you want to discuss that you feel needs relevance in clearing up within the industry.
So I thought about this question, and I came up with a lot of ideas, but I think here is what I think is happening. I see this more clearly now in last 1 year or so. Small and medium-sized businesses are struggling in cybersecurity right now. Most of the vendors I talk to, most of the conferences I go to, most of the people I end up discussing things, there is an implicit assumption that the biggest buyers of these vendor products are enterprises, right? Fortune 2000, that's where the buck stops, right? Nobody's thinking about beyond that, right? Second problem I see is it's always about more spend, right? So vendors want you to spend more money. Third is about not having to worry about how enterprises will handle the integration, deployment, and operationalization of the product they're selling, because enterprises have money, they have resources, they do have the ecosystem to build these things. But coming back to the small and medium-sized businesses, foundational question is, why does any company need security? Why should any company need cybersecurity, right? Primarily, there are, in my mind, 2 to 3 reasons. Biggest one is compliance, regulatory compliance. In order to operate in a certain geographic region, in order to be in a certain domain, if it's a fintech, healthcare, they have to comply with some regulations. In order to comply with, they need to have some controls in place to showcase that. So that is number one. Number two is their brand reputation. If they do get breached and they are holding on to some data, they will be in big trouble with their own customers, clients, and potentially government. Third is their day-to-day operations. If they have a denial of service attack, potentially, their business stops. Even if there is no real breach, their infrastructure is attacked, they will have to take a step back. Some servers are down, they can't serve their customers, right? Those are three primary reasons why a company would want a cybersecurity, no matter the size. Now, if we dial it down to the small and medium-sized businesses who do not have enough revenues, do not have IT and infosec spends. For example, a company making $5-10 million a year ARR, right? They are in the early stages. They're trying to build their business, venturing out to different geographic regions, building more products, building their sales team, product improvements. They do not have money to hire a CISO, find multiple practitioners, engineers, build security for them, provide all the controls they need, do the evidence collection and everything. It may cost them, let's say, $1 million, $2 million. If they are making $5-10 million revenue, that's not what they can afford to spend. So what happens to those companies, right? Those companies will go venture out, try to find cheaper solutions, right? They are not looking for expensive vendor solutions. And I'm not saying every vendor, but most of the vendor solutions could get very expensive for the right reason. They have more bells and whistles. They have a lot more support. They have longevity. They solve a lot more problems. But that's not a perfect match for a lot of these companies, right? Because they may not need all the bells and whistles. They may need only basic security for the compliance, for their brand, and to protect their infrastructure from any kind of attacks. That's where I think a lot of security program building, lot of knowledge is lacking, because these companies not only not have money, they don't have knowledge and understanding of what does it take to build a mature enough cybersecurity program to run the business on a day-to-day basis. We are not able to democratize cybersecurity right now. It's way too complex. Even with the larger companies I worked for, or I know of other companies that my friends work at, with millions of dollars of budget, it's a complex maze of vendor products, right? You go to RSA, Expo Hall, or Black Hat, or any other conferences, there are 2,000 vendors. 100 each domain. You want to solve a data security issue, classification, tagging, you want to do identity. There are hundreds of vendors even in one domain. There are tens of vendors just solving exact same problem.
Let's talk about something that might be keeping you awake at night: cybersecurity. According to Vanta's latest State of Trust report, it's the #1 concern for UK businesses. That's where Vanta comes in. Whether you're a startup, growing fast, or already established, Vanta can help you get ISO 27001 certified and more without the headaches. Vanta allows your company to centralize security workflows, complete questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risks to help your team not only get compliant, but stay compliant. Stop stressing over cybersecurity and start focusing on growing your business in 2025. Check out Vanta and let us handle the tough stuff. Head to vanta.com/decode to learn more. Because when it comes to your business, it's not just about keeping the lights on, it's about keeping everything secure. Thanks.
So to be able to identify the right vendor for right price, where the deployment is easier to integrate with existing tooling, operationalizing and getting value for a low cost with enough support, it just becomes too complex for anybody, right? So when big companies have that struggle, then small companies are definitely out of options, right? I do believe there is a lot of disruption needed where we actually start helping the small and medium-sized businesses. Either it is on a volunteer basis, non-profit basis, or just bringing more awareness. The analogy I give is, today we lock our home. Everybody locks their home when they go out, right? Few hundred years back, that was not the case. People did not know. Locks came, people were made aware that somebody can steal, come in your house, and everybody started doing. So there is a basic level of protection available for us to protect our home, right? You lock your car, all that stuff. That understanding is not there in cybersecurity right now. We are not talking about IT companies only. We're talking about manufacturing companies, clothes manufacturing. They may be doing, produce, like whatever. Anybody who has data is a target, right? So we are not making them aware. We are not helping them. We keep bringing more and more complex solutions for the right reasons for the large Fortune 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 enterprises. But these companies will keep suffering, right? We are increasing the divide right now. And that's where I personally think in last 1 year, what I have seen is we as practitioners, we as executives, we as long-term professionals in this domain have an obligation to go back, and you can call it giving back to community. You can talk about helping people, but we have to do that. There are 2 reasons. One is, of course, we want everybody to have more secure posture in their environment. And I think there is a side effect, a positive side effect, which is that if more and more companies start building more controls, they are aware of it, everybody's a little bit more secure. Because when a vulnerability gets exposed and exploited in a small enterprise, guess what? The same thing can be done in enterprises. Not every enterprise. I mean, I don't know of any enterprise that has 100% vulnerability management and cover, and they're not sitting on any. So you are potentially reducing that attack surface overall. Just like we started using passwords and now we are trying to get out of passwords, there was a level of protection we started building. When you're logging in online, nobody knew, why do I need password? You started using that. We need to keep bringing these companies up. We need to have more and more people thinking about it, talking about it, and helping these companies. Right? Not everything translates, in my mind, into larger, more complex, and more expensive products. Sometimes some of the simplest things can help everybody. And it helps them too, right? Even if there is a lot of companies try to do this free tier or freemium or kind of limited edition, that helps. But with that has to come a lot of understanding, the awareness of what they need to do, right? That's where I think, and I'm trying to build awareness there on my side, trying to get a lot of my colleagues and friends who are in a really amazing positions, and they are coming forward, they are talking about it, they are trying to help based on their time availability, but we have to help them, right? We have to also reduce the geographic divide, right? So if you're just talking about SMBs in US, that's in my mind not enough. There are companies. I talked to a company in Kenya a couple of months back. This guy just moved back, and then he started doing something to help them build awareness, and it opened my eyes as, okay, there is a huge market there where people will need that, those services. Countries that did not see computers in school 20 years back, and now their kids in high school and middle school are starting to use computers for their homework, math, and all. They have infrastructure that needs protection too. A lot of government nonprofits don't have enough money to do all that, right? I do think a lot of that needs to be done. That's where my mind is right now, right? It almost feels like an obligation that we have to help there. I am doing my part by helping a lot of companies right now, just helping them understand how they should approach certain problems. Even vendors, right? I'm telling them not everything needs to be solved by you. Not everybody has need for your solution. Try to find a match, try to make it simpler to deploy, because guess what? Not all organizations are going to need a complex solution. Some of them may need very simple click button solution, right? And that may be enough for them. Not enough for enterprises, but for smaller companies, it could be. So simplifying the product, the deployment, operationalization, and not needing multiple analysts to maintain your product, right? Because that's very expensive. So that's where I think my mind is right now, from perspective of what can be done, and the topic that's very close to my heart. I'm doing I have a speaking engagement in a couple of weeks where I really have a 1 full hour where I talk about, if you don't know anything, this is how you start, right? I'm writing some articles and potentially a book, just helping the people who are not experts, right? And don't need to be experts. They can leverage some of the basics and protect themselves and their environment for pretty much no cost or very, very little cost. So instead of increasing the cost and complexity, I'm talking about decreasing both of them.
And I think that's a really good point, because we all share the same ecosystem and the same universe. If there's an impact hitting someone larger, it's going to hit someone smaller. And I think the dilution of these complex subject matters and tools, again, like, all you need is fundamental basics. That could be enough to keep your head above water. And I think, that it's good to hear that obviously you'll have this material coming out at some point, and hopefully if it's this year, next year, then we can obviously promote that in the podcast as well, and and try and raise a bit more awareness around, you don't need to go like borrowing money or spending most of your VC investment into like enterprise-wide items that aren't, 90% of it is completely useless for your technology stack and where you are in your journey. But to conclude then, Ashish, in terms of the one thing in cyber you think is BS and needs clarity.
I think I'll dovetail on what I was saying earlier. I think there is a misconception that more tools solve problem, right? Whether you look from vendor perspective or CISO's perspective, big, large enterprises, right? A lot of our budgetary demand is, can I buy this one more tool and that solves this problem? My personal opinion is that tools don't solve the problem. And I've been involved in many tool purchases, many solution purchases, which looked very shiny, but we could never implement, maintain, or make use of it, right? And we ended up spending more money on tooling than what we needed in terms of the processes, in terms of people, in terms of building the right architecture to protect the enterprise. So tools, that I think is a big BS. It's not always a BS completely, but most of the time, if you think that more tools will solve your problem, it's not correct. On the other hand, if you are trying to protect your cloud environment and you don't have any tooling, even a cloud native tooling, you will need to have something, right? That's a huge attack surface, especially for companies that are moving more to cloud or who are starting out with cloud. So all is not lost, but yeah, just buying more tools, going to Gartner's quadrant, trying to find the one on the topmost right, and saying this will solve the problem is is a little silly in my mind. You always have to look at what does the business need. Security is not about building state of the art stadium or a fort. It is more around what does the business need. If your business runs on data and you're buying tools around infrastructure that is on-prem and air gap, that's just a misaligned vision, right? So you need to know your business. You need to know what the business will thrive in, what your customers want from your product. Help them, right? A lot of times customers, I have built products in multiple companies where customers needed a specific security feature in the product we were selling. We had to go back to the whiteboard, build it out, figure out the architecture, work with customer and our engineering teams, understand what they're looking for, find the right vendor, evaluate them, get the cost under control, get the timeline correct so that your impact to the business is minimal in terms of the deployment. And also you're aligning in terms of timeline. So you have your product ready, which is your security features and the tooling that you need for product before the product gets released. So nobody is stressed. They know they can start marketing, advertising, telling the customer, we build what you're looking for. Here is the product. This is a beta. You can test it out and let us know, and we can just roll it out to you in a GA release. So that's the right mindset. If you need tooling for that, by all means, that's all the fair, because you're relying on the revenue stream to fund that now, right? If there's a revenue attached to it, you're taking part of the revenue, saying we'll build a better product so that this revenue stream continues on. That's a perfect fit. If you're doing it just because NIST is saying it and it has no significance to your organization, that's misguided purchase. And I've seen a lot of them, and I would appeal to everybody not to go through that. Know your customer, know your business, and support them, enable them to sell more.
That's very sound advice. And I would say as well, just to add on that you touched upon about solving the business problem, right? You don't need to go spend millions on something that could cost, I don't know, $10,000. And again, I think a lot of people, they have that kind of fear or intimidation from vendors selling them products. And listen, not every vendor's a bad person, right? Or bad people, but run a proof of concept. Most vendors typically give you anything like a few weeks, a month, and then run proof of value and look at, is it giving you the data? Is it protecting you? Is it giving you what you need in terms of that problem solving situation? And I think a lot of people sometimes just, they get excited, they maybe see some nice buttons or they see a nice presentation, and then it's like they jump straight in, and then it's like they're jumping head first, and banging their head at the bottom after they spend a lot of money. They find out they're tied in for like a 2-3 year contract, and they're like, oh my God, what have we done? And that's like most of their budget gone. So, but anything else you'd like to add before we close up then, Ashish?
One quick story on the vendor side. So I started
out
talking about the vendor relationship, how important it is. I'll give you one real story, and I won't name anything on vendor side or the company I was with, but just building relationship on trust and solving a real business problem can take you far. So there was a project I was working on, huge revenue impact, and we could not delay. We had to work with engineering team. We had to work with vendor. We were not able to deliver on time based on the timelines slipping. And there was a lot of concern, but there was a vendor who originally helped us build that architecture. They were not implementing, but implementers were delayed because of lack of communication or lack of understanding or whatever it was, right? Lack of knowledge, I guess, around the infrastructure. So I brought the original vendor that did the architecture for us. I had zero money. There was no budget left, right? Literally no budget left. And there is no way I can go and ask, but I had to finish this in, I think, 6 weeks to 8 weeks. I built the vendor relationship for a for more than a year with the vendor who built this original architecture. I went and said, okay, I literally called them and said, okay, I need this help. There was a person that helped me, and I think they can help me reach the end line, but I don't have any money. Is it possible to just get some loan up number of hours from this person's schedule as a IOU that, you know, it's a trust thing? Within 24 hours, they made it work, right? There was no reason for them to help me at all or help my organization. But just because they knew that when we had budget, we did work very well with them. They did deliver good stuff. We worked very well together. We supported them in producing results, and they just helped me, and then we finished that project. Like I don't remember how many millions of dollars worth of revenue was impacting there, and we were able to deliver it on time, and it worked really well. So the point I'm trying to make here is it is so important to build those relationships internally as well as with vendors if you want to be successful. Going back to that navigating your path, figuring out, you don't know how and when you'll be able to leverage some of the skills from others, right? And they will be able to do it for you, like from you as well, right? If you build that relationship. So it's extremely important. I'll close out on that, but that was, I just remember that to mention.
No, I love it. It's very tactical because, you know, those partnerships, those people will remember. Maybe it leads to a business opportunity later on, or they just really see a problem that they can use as a use case elsewhere. And I think that's a really good tactic to leverage. So, yeah, Ashish, again, thank you so much for your time tonight. For our audience, we did have a bit of a disaster, so we'll need to slice some episodes together and bits and bobs. We probably need to use, I don't know, special effects and AI and everything else on the back of it. Obviously, this is Ashish and I don't know the story, but anyway, we had a power cut, but we're here. But again, thank you so much for your time, Ashish. Thank you for your insights, your knowledge, and obviously your advice as well, and talking us through aspects of your career and everything that supports that. And again, for our audience, please like, share, subscribe, and also follow Ashish on LinkedIn. He's very active. He mentioned he's got a couple of engagements coming up, which I think will be excellent. And also, hopefully, this book as well. And then we'll get that plugged on the channel. And obviously, you know, I'll share on LinkedIn. But yeah, Ashish, thanks again for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Leo. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.